What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my review of AEW Dynamite, which took place February 7th. Overall, good show. Of course, leading into this, we had a few things to look forward to, namely another big announcement from Tony Khan. Seems like it's a monthly thing. Sometimes he delivers, sometimes he doesn't. This turned out to be pretty good for at least what we assume it will be in 5 weeks' time. We'll get to that. Now, Sting at 64 years old, going for some championship gold. Big deal, especially being that he's retiring early next month at AEW Revolution, March 3rd. So we'll get to that match throughout the course of the review, which was the main event for this episode of AEW Dynamite. And last but certainly not least, as far as one of the things to most look forward to in this episode, we were getting Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland Part 3. Of course, Swerve Strickland won the first two, being in Wrestle Dream in October and Full Gear in November. Could Hangman Adam Page finally get a victory in this series? So speaking of which, let's start off with that match since that started the show for AEW Dynamite. Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland. Fantastic match, so much so that it lasted the entirety of 30 minutes. Seemed like Swerve Strickland was going to get the job done at the end. I mean, there was a lot of times throughout this match where it seemed like either one of them was going to get the victory. Did not happen, though. Swerve Strickland hit a vicious JML driver on Hangman Adam Page, trying to get that 1-2-3. They ring the bell ringside. They're out of time before the referee could get the three. Swerve could not believe it. Hangman Adam Page escaped being beaten 3 consecutive times against Swerve. It looked like it was over and that series was done. This was, by the way, a number one contenders match for the AEW World Championship at AEW Revolution March 3rd to go up against Samoa Joe. The match was over. It was a draw, no victory. They ran out of time. And so Swerve Strickland, he got on the microphone and Hangman Adam Page was about to make his way, up the ramp and go backstage. The match was over, obviously. And Swerve says 5 more minutes. Hangman Adam Page declines. He says, what you had to do was beat me. You did not. And so that's that. And you will not get your championship match at Revolution. He actually went on to say that Swerve will now not be a world champion. And now for him, it is over, which to me is a little ridiculous because, I know they have the ranking system that they just brought back in 2024. It's been a while, a year and a half since they've used that whole system. Not crazy about it, by the way, especially, we know pro wrestling's predetermined and the rankings, just not a big fan of how they're doing it in AEW a few years ago, even now. And so Swerve beat Adam Page, again, like I said a few minutes ago, in October, in November. And so just based upon this ranking system where I guess Adam Page has a slight edge over Swerve, that he would get this championship opportunity against Samoa Joe, it's silly. Again, Swerve was this close to sweeping him 3-0 in the series. So anyway, as Hangman Adam Page declines, 5 more minutes to continue on and find a rightful winner of this match, Tony Schiavone gets on the mic as Hangman's trying to leave and tells him to stop. He says, because Tony Khan has made his ruling, a draw means 2 number one contenders, and now it'll be a 3-way at AEW Revolution. So now we have a 3-way match. Should be a fantastic main event at AEW Revolution. Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page, and of course, AEW World Champion Samoa Joe. Looking forward to it. I'm sure it's going to be a killer main event. And so that's how the show started off. We're already a quarter through the show. Again, no winner here, but it was a great match. We've seen it happen before. Not with these two, where time ran out, but many other matches in AEW. And so we were back from commercial break here. Renee Paquette interviewed Samoa Joe in regards to this matchup that he'll now see take place. Said it just having one rightful opponent. Now he's got 2. And he says, we're celebrating mediocrity. Neither of these men deserve to be in the ring against me. And management might want the title off of him. But no matter what they do, he's walking out of AEW Revolution as the AEW World Champion. And still, I very much could see that happening. Not making an early prediction or anything like that. But I have a very hard time seeing Samoa Joe losing that title right away. By this moment in time, it will be barely 2 months since he's been AEW World Champion. I think he's due for a lengthy reign at minimum, maybe the next pay-per-view, AEW Double or Nothing in May, around Memorial Day weekend or so. I could see maybe he'll then lose, but until then, I don't think that title will not be leaving his side. Now, following this, we had a women's matchup. The women were on a little earlier than usual. Usually they get their 9:20 time spot for their one match of the night, but it was early. Glad to see that. So the number one contender for that AEW Women's World Championship, Deonna Purrazzo, the Virtuosa, was ringside for this matchup between AEW Women's World Champion Timeless Toni Storm and Red Velvet. It was a good match, but we already knew the handwriting was on the wall. We knew that Toni Storm was going to get the victory and that she very much did. She won by submission with an ankle lock and a foot on Red Velvet's neck. In that post-match, Toni Storm kept that hold on Red Velvet. That was until the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo made her way into the ring, making sure that she would get off of Red Velvet. The two went face-to-face, and that was pretty much that. So, of course, we have a little less than a month's build until their matchup at Revolution, where I do fully expect Timeless Toni Storm to retain that championship. And so that's pretty much one of the only main storylines going on in AEW in the women's division. The world title picture, Julia Hart, the TBS champion. I don't really see a number one contender for her just at the moment. I mean, I'm sure based upon the rankings, they have a few lined up, but as far as on television, she's not really going back and forth with anybody at the moment. It's been the better part of a month now since she went back and forth with Abaddon. Now, following that, we had a six-man tag team match where we saw all three members of the Blackpool Combat Club, being Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, and of course, Claudio Castagnoli, going up against three guys from CMLL of Mexico. This was a pretty good match, honestly. Blackpool Combat Club, big fan of them, especially when you see these three together. Nothing against Wheeler Yuta. I think he's fantastic. But seeing Moxley, Danielson, and Claudio, big fan of all three since their WWE days, even now to their AEW days. So they got the victory here. Claudio had hit one of the guys with a low blow and a folding press for the 1-2-3. And that was pretty much that. They're badass. Blackpool Combat Club. They've been a solid faction for at least the better part of a year and a half, on their way to 2 years now. So again, anytime seeing that is a group of guys that I would love to see win the AEW World Trios Championships. Mox, Danielson, and Claudio. Hopefully they get a run at it before they, whenever they disband, hopefully no time soon. So after this matchup, it was finally time for Tony Khan's big announcement. He goes on to say he's excited. We might have heard earlier from the TD Garden that AEW will be back in Boston on March 13th in just 5 weeks' time for AEW Dynamite / Rampage. And it will be a big night for the entire pro wrestling industry. And it will be a supercard entitled AEW Big Business. He went on to say tickets will go on sale this Saturday at 10 a.m. and that this will be one of the most important nights in AEW and a night the entire industry will remember. Who will be making their debut on March 13th at the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. All signs are leading to formerly known as the Boss, Sasha Banks, now known as the CEO, Mercedes Moné. It's exciting stuff. Now, it's been rumored that she's been on AEW payroll since January at least. And news actually broke earlier Wednesday that, look, she's going to be there March 13th at the TD Garden, Boston, Massachusetts. And that was because, like Tony Khan alluded to earlier in the day, I don't know if it was an accident or not, but TD Garden put up a graphic that said All Elite Wrestling presents Dynamite Rampage Wednesday, March 13th at 7:30. Again, TD Garden, Boston, Massachusetts. It was said that they took this graphic down shortly thereafter. Maybe they were jumping the gun on the surprise. But nonetheless, Tony Khan did confirm that indeed we will be getting this event taking place, this special edition of Dynamite, now known as Big Business. If you look at the graphic, it is right up the alley of a Mercedes Moné, or formerly known as the Sasha Banks, just by the color scheme, the presentation with the, baby blue with the purple background. If you've seen the graphic, you know what I'm talking about. And even the S in business, it's a $. Again, Mercedes Moné, right? Money. So look, it looks like we're finally going to get to see the debut of Mercedes Moné. And even if you look to the back of the graphic on the left-hand side, right under the words TD Garden, it says Boston, Boston. And both of the S's are shown as $, alluding to Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné. So it's pretty much unofficially confirmed that we will be getting her debut March 13th. And it was said the past few weeks, too, another reason they were holding off on her debut was to kind of let Sting get his flowers, right? Let everybody enjoy his tour the last couple months of 2024 until his retirement date of March 3rd. Here she'll show up a week and a half later. It's the ushering in of a new era, especially for the women's division over there in AEW. This is huge. We haven't seen Britt Baker in a while. The return of Jamie Hayter should be soon. She's been out with injury since last fall when she dropped that championship to Toni Storm. And I mean, really, the entirety of that whole AEW women's division is shaping up to be pretty good, whether they're showcased on AEW or Ring of Honor. The whole thing is you just need to book them for matches, and you need to book more than just a couple of women in an upward trajectory. A lot of them fall by the wayside, but look, the talent is there. Hopefully Mercedes Moné showing up will not just be good for her own self or her own sake, but hopefully will help all the other women around her. She's always been a big advocate on building up the division, making them feel important. She was like that in NXT, in WWE specifically. So hopefully that carries over to AEW. So, I wish her all the best. That's exciting for the whole locker room. And honestly, AEW is on a pretty good trajectory here because Will Ospreay will be showing up soon. Hopefully, Okada, it seems, doesn't seem like he's going to WWE now. And it's been rumored lately she's no longer in talks with WWE. Former NWA Women's Champion Camille, also a big pickup. If you're not familiar with her, she's a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure. So AEW seems to be making some big moves here, and hopefully they do right by each and every one of these talents. So that's exciting stuff. And just in a few weeks' time, right? Again, tickets go on sale this Saturday, 10 a.m. for AEW Big Business in Boston, Massachusetts at the TD Garden. So following this, we had a matchup with Chris Jericho going up against Konosuke Takeshita. This was a pretty vicious match, to say the least. I like the fact that Takeshita has been showcased a lot in 2024, whether it's against Darby Allin or tag team matches and, going up against the likes of Jericho and so on. So he's been getting a lot of shine. Hopefully that means some gold for him in 2024. Now, the way this match ended in very heel fashion, his manager, Don Callis, who has, been going head to head quite literally with Jericho the past couple of months, Don Callis spiked Chris Jericho with a screwdriver when the referee obviously was not paying attention. He threw a steel chair in for the ref to get distracted with, and he went over there again, hit him with the screwdriver. Konosuke with the Boston Crab. Jericho, for a moment though, he was back. He didn't, he raised his hand for the third time, thinking it would fall like the first two, and he stayed with it. He tried to get over to the rope, but Takeshita just dragged him in the center of the ring, and it was just a matter of moments till Jericho tapped out, and he won by submission. Now, before I knew it, it was time for the main event of AEW Dynamite. I'm like, how did we get here already? But then I forgot the first half hour consisted of Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland in that 30-minute match that turned out to be a draw. So I said, here we go. It's time for the AEW World Tag Team Championship titles to be on the line. Ricky Starks, Big Bill defending against the Icon Sting and Darby Allin. This was a fun main event, especially a 64-year-old Sting doing what he could do, doing some absolutely crazy spots from the bleachers, right? Doing it from the fan seats. We've seen him do this spot numerous times over the past couple of years in AEW. Just unbelievable what he's willing to do, putting his body on the line for the sake of the fans. Again, 64, he'll be 65, I believe, March 20th, just a few days after his retirement, right? So this was nuts. This was a pretty good match, though. It was decent. And Darby Allin and Sting won the AEW World Tag Team Championships with Sting hitting Ricky Starks with a Scorpion Death Drop for the 1, 2, 3. So happy to see it. They're going to hold the titles for the better part of 3 to 4 weeks. And that is until they probably will drop them at AEW Revolution for Sting's final match, unless they are able to win and he goes out on top. I would assume that Darby Allin would not replace Sting because he's simply irreplaceable. They would relinquish those titles, being that Sting's retiring. And that would be the perfect scenario, honestly. But I don't think it's going to end that way because post-match, we saw the new, and I don't know if you want to call them improved. I think it's an improvement from a character standpoint, these more vicious heels we see, but we see them come in white suits with hats on, as they now refer to themselves as not just Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, but Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the EVPs of AEW, come in there. I believe they had bats in hand, hitting Sting, hitting Darby Allin. They even busted Darby Allin open. He was a bloody mess. So that was unexpected. And, prior to this, it was a nice moment until they came in and ruined it, because post-match, Sting's two sons jumped the barricade. They're grown men. Again, Sting, 64. They came in there to celebrate with Sting and Darby Allin. That was until, again, Nicholas Matthew Jackson came in. Not only did they take Sting and Darby out, they took out both of Sting's sons as well in the meantime. And so that's how the show ended. While the confetti had still been coming down for this big celebration for Sting and Darby, half of it was covered in blood, again, due to the fact that Darby Allin was busted open. And I didn't see him take a brutal shot. I'm assuming it was with the bat. Something, obviously, I don't think they meant to bust him open with it, but that's what happened and that's what took place. And that's how this show ended. So it seems like that's who we're going to see for those AEW World Tag Team Championships at Revolution. We will not see a rematch of Big Bill and Ricky Starks looking to get those titles back from Sting and Darby. Instead, it seems in a little less than a month's time, we will get Nick and Matt, the Bucks, going up against Sting and Darby, where I think they will beat them. They will become tag team champions. And that would be Sting and Darby's first loss. They're undefeated as a tag team throughout the course of the last 3 years, which is very impressive. So that's that. Again, shout out to Sting. I don't know how many years it's been since he's held gold, it has to be well over a decade, maybe since his TNA days, I would assume. But that's awesome to see. And to be honest with you, not just gold in general, right? I'm thinking maybe singles titles in TNA and such. But when's the last time he actually won tag team gold? Maybe that dates back to his WCW days, even. I don't know. Did he win tag team gold in TNA? Maybe somebody can answer that one for me. So, again, that was AEW Dynamite. That was pretty much it. And it was a good show. It was, in my opinion, it was quality over quantity. Again, the first match took up the first quarter of the show, which I'm not opposed to. If it's a good quality match, not just nonsensical filler, I'll take that any day of the week. So that's what we had for Dynamite on February 7th. So as always, folks, thank you for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and I appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.